Welcome to Military History Inside Out, located at warscholar.org. Today's book covers SAS and Cold War history. I'm speaking with Robert W. Brown, author of Special Forces Operator, serving with the SAS and MRF, published March 23rd, 2021 by Pen and Sword History. Thank you very much for speaking with me.
Thanks for inviting me.
So first, so I know you were a participant in what you wrote about in this book, but tell me why you decided. Well, tell me how you got into this business and why you wrote this book about it.
Okay, let's have a look at why I got into the business. Okay, I was very young, and I met a friend in Australia as a young boy, and he was the epitome of an Australian digger. Mm-hmm. He was tall, rugged, very macho. When you went into his workshop, he had all the good stuff, guns and bits of equipment. And he used to tell the most fantastic army stories. Mm-hmm. And I thought, plus, just by way of interest, he really could pull the Sheilas. I mean, Sheila being the term for young lady. So he was he was an attractive commodity for the fairer sex. Mm. And I thought, that's good. I shall listen to him and follow him. And as I say, he told tremendous stories about the military. And it kind of sucked me in. And
about what year was this?
This would be 1960, maybe 64.
Okay.
64, something like that. Yeah. So I was quite young. And I was never I don't come from a very close family. So I think you could say that this person stood in a lot for what I had missed when growing up. Mm-hmm. Guns, adventure, stories, popularity, mm-hmm. all the things that a young guy looks at and thinks, that's for me, I'd like to be like that.
Yeah.
So that's how I got into it.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, I was I left home very early, and I was wondering what I should do with my life. And I saw in the paper an ad, a collage of different types of things that you could do in the army. Mm-hmm. And I thought, that is just like what he used to do. So I went to him and I said, I would like to do this. How do I do this? Being a young man, I didn't know my way much. Mm-hmm. And he looked at me and he said, you're not going to make it. And I said, why? He said, you're not big enough and you're not fit enough. And from that time on in my life, if somebody said, you can't do it, you're not going to make it, that was like really flipping a switch. Mm-hmm. So I went and I did it. And that's where I started. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what I was getting into, had no idea at all. And it was a real revelation when I started. Mm-hmm. It was, and I surprised everybody. When I started, I didn't tell anybody I had embarked on this adventure. Mm-hmm. Because I wasn't sure whether I would get through Special Forces selection or pre-selection. Mm-hmm. But I did. And I surprised myself as well as everybody else. In fact, I don't think anybody really understood at that time. Because at that time, Special Forces was very much a smoke and mirrors thing. People knew about soldiers because they saw them in uniform. Mm-hmm. But if you spoke to them about Special Forces, there wouldn't be a great deal of available knowledge in the civilian world. It was shortly after the war, not too many years after the war, mm-hmm. and most of those units had been disbanded. Okay. So over to you.
And so I assume this was the Australian military, or was it?
Yes, this would be the Australian military. In fact, the unit I joined, uh, just a brief background on the Australian military.
Mhm.
They had a policy. They were for want of another word, not wanting to offend anybody, they were a colonial army that would support the British Empire in a time of conflict. And then after the war, there was no need for special forces or commando units or strike groups or anything like that. They disbanded them totally. And they had they lost all their integrity in regards to special forces operations because there weren't any special forces. And I joined the special forces. I joined 2 Commando some 15 years after the end of the war, because they had only been resurrected a few years before I joined them. So it was a unit that was in its infancy. Special Forces in Australia was in its infancy, because prior to that, they had been trained by the Brits back in 1940, I think it was. And then after the Second World War, most governments cut back on the military. It was all over. We didn't need them. Go away.
So did you join first in a regular, I don't know if they call it an MOS there, or and then go, and then you try out for the special forces, or did you go straight in?
No, what I did is they did have a regular army in Australia, mostly infantry. They also had only one, I think it was one company of Special Air Service. They had a platoon of airborne forces, a platoon, not a company. And they had, I think, 2 commando units. One was in Victoria, in the state of Victoria, and the other one was in New South Wales in Sydney. And to join those, what you did is you actually volunteered. It wasn't, you weren't called up at that time. You volunteered. You did a selection course. You did a pre-selection course to see whether you're going to manage. And then you went away and did your 3-week selection course, and then continuation training.
Okay.
But there was a regular army in Australia. It was a small army. It was a regular army. Even though small, it was because Australia is on a Pacific Rim, and most of their training was jungle warfare, because they saw that area as their traditional hunting grounds. The Australian Army, even the infantry, were jungle fighters par excellence. They were very, very good. They still had training bases to train infantry troops in jungle fighting.
And so if you didn't make it in the SAS, in the Special Forces selection, did you just move into the infantry, or could you just leave and say, you know what, I don't want to do any of this?
Okay. I did 2 years with them. Okay. Special Forces units have different line functions, and they're not all things to all people, although the movies make them sound as though they are. But Special Forces units have a line function. That's why they're called Special Forces units, because basically Special Forces employ basic infantry tactics, only they employ it better because of their mindset, because of their selection. So there's nothing really magic about Special Forces other than their means of entry and their means of exit. And by that I mean when you move infantry forces into battle, you use various means. You use trucks, you can fly them in, etc. Okay. Special Forces do things like that. They do parachuting. It was only later on that I did free falling, much later on.
Mm-hmm.
They use small boats. They also one of the more famous groups from the Australians in the 1939, 1942 and 45 war, or the Japanese war, was they had a group called M&Z Force.
Mm-hmm.
And M&Z Force was seen as special forces. And what they used to do is they used to sail around the Pacific in a Chinese junk.
Mm.
And they actually did a very famous raid, which is obviously very parochial, and the world doesn't really know about it. They did a very famous raid into Singapore Harbour,
Mm-hmm.
As a Chinese junk. They sunk a lot of Japanese shipping,
Mm-hmm.
but they made a fundamental mistake later on, where they did the same technique again, and all the crew got caught and they got beheaded. And today in the Australian Army, when you're training, or when I was training, and they had various sayings, and one of those was, never be stereotyped, never do the same thing twice,
Mm-hmm.
because somebody will bounce you. So special forces, once upon a time with the Special Air Service in England, you used to have to be transferred from a unit. You used to have to be a seasoned soldier. So you would be in any military unit,
Mm-hmm.
in a British SAS, okay? You could be in any military unit in the British Army. You could even be a cook in the British Army.
Mm-hmm.
But you had a fundamental right to apply for and go and do Special Air Service selection.
Okay.
And if you passed the selection, then you had continuation training and you would go on to be all sorts of other things.
Mm-hmm.
But you would have already done basic soldiering. So
Mm-hmm.
you were a basic soldier. As all soldiers, when they go in, they do their basic training, basic soldiering, and then they specialize in whatever they want to do. And that's pretty much similar with most special forces units, other than the fact they reviewed that at one time and they said, okay, let's take civilians straight in. They can do the pre-selection, they can do the selection, and then they will train them to their way of thinking. Because basically all special forces is they're infantry soldiers which learn different tactics and techniques for entry and exit, okay? But they have a different mindset. The total mindset and ethos of a special forces soldier
Mm-hmm.
is different, and in some cases contradictory to basic soldiering.
Okay.
And the famous motto of the Special Air Service is, who dares wins. It doesn't matter. You won't know if you're going to win unless you try it. So
Mm-hmm.
let's try it. Mm-hmm. So it's a different mindset. That's basically what it is.
So do you talk about your training in early years in the book?
Not too much, but a little bit. When I wrote the book, I didn't want to write another war story. What I wanted to do was, I was trying to get across that special forces soldiers are people.
Mm-hmm.
They are just very ordinary men which have a different mindset and a different attitude towards life.
Mm-hmm.
And they have families, they have children, they go home, they go to church, they play football, play golf, but they have a different mindset about warfare and when they go to war. Their whole outlook is different to normal people.
Okay. So I'll ask a few more questions about the book, but first, let me ask one more about what your training was like. I'm curious about that.
Okay. What I'll do is I'll give you the training through each unit I went through, because
Okay.
I've been in 4 different armies,
Okay.
plus other armies. Okay. The at, at that time when I first started, as I said, the Australian Army, jungle fighters par excellence. Okay, great. I mean, world renowned. Very, very good. I did, that was where I first did my parachute course.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a parachute course. I did a small boat course, tactics, jungle warfare, minor tactics, a little bit of DEMS, because
When you say
basically how
dams,
it works this way. Sorry, go
dams,
ahead.
when you said dams, what do you mean? When you said a little bit of dams, did you mean?
Oh, sorry, it's the accent. Demolitions.
Oh, okay. Okay.
sorry, sorry.
No problem.
Um, DEMS is short for demolitions.
Okay.
Okay. All these courses, you do basic courses, because you have to start somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So my basic DEMS was learning how to blow up railway lines.
Mm-hmm.
Did I ever go to war and blow up a railway line? No, never. But that was a basic. That was, you put the plastic explosives or PE here, stick in the detonator and run. That
Mm-hmm.
basic stuff. Okay. If at some stage that soldier has to go onto an operation, okay, or he's going to specialize in demolitions, then what happens is he goes on a course. He goes on an advanced demolitions course,
Mm-hmm.
because demolitions is not just a matter of packing a lot of dynamite around something and hoping it works. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
you have to sit down and you have to work out tolerances of these structures. You have to work out the burn rate of the explosions. You have to work out. There's multiple things you have to work if you're going to be a demolitions expert.
Mm-hmm.
You have to learn about things like shape charges, what charges will cut steel, what charges will cut concrete, how will you cut the concrete so as it falls down. So when you become a demolitions expert, it's very advanced. Now, why would you waste that much money on training everybody to be a demolitions expert, where if you go to do a job, you would have a trained medic, a mini doctor. Everybody would have done basic medics, but not everybody is a trauma medic. And the same with DEMS. Everybody would know how to blow something up, lay a claymore mine, a grenade necklace. But if you want to blow up a bridge, you want something more refined.
Mm-hmm.
So you would have an explosive or demolitions expert. So the training there, as in most special forces, you would have a team. And in that team, everybody would have a basic knowledge of what was required.
Mm-hmm.
But you would have an expert in a particular field for that particular task. And that's how it works. So it's evolving, it's changing all the time, it's rotating, and it's probably one of the fastest moving professions in the world. They're always learning new and interesting ways to break things and kill people. It's basically it. Yeah. So that's the Australian Army. Okay.
What was your expertise, by the way?
What my expertise? I was just a basic infantry soldier.
Okay.
Later on, I moved into an area of expertise. Okay, but I was just a special forces soldier. It's hard to explain, actually. I was part of a team. Okay. The Australians, I would say, okay, at that time, jungle warfare, great. I then moved across and I joined the British Parachute Regiment.
Okay.
Okay. And that was an education in patience as well.
What year was that?
And I joined the British Parachute Regiment in 1969.
Okay.
Okay. Before joining the British Parachute Regiment, between the Australians and the British Parachute Regiment, I spent some time in Southeast Asia. Okay. I didn't belong to anybody when I was in Southeast Asia. I was employed.
Okay. Okay.
In my area of expertise. And that's it. Okay. All right. I joined the British Parachute Regiment in 69. And obviously they're parachute soldiers. Their training is so as they can survive as a unit for a protracted period of time until they can get reinforced by ground forces.
Okay.
So they will be parachuted into an area, possibly be behind enemy lines, to hold strategic positions until the main ground forces could get to them. They have to be incredibly fit, extremely tenacious, because when they go somewhere, they may be told you only have to stay there for 24 hours. And a week later, somebody might say, unfortunately, we can't get to you. Can you hang on for another week?
Yeah.
So again, it's a matter of mindset. They're extremely tenacious. The training is incredibly hard, physically hard, as is all special units. Okay. Before you do your basic soldering again on all different types of weapons. When I went into the British Parachute Regiment, I didn't tell them I was a seasoned soldier. I went in as a recruit. I just said nothing to them, signed on as a recruit. So I did their basic soldering again. And that's basic soldering, everything from map reading to medics, to ambushing, patrolling, and then parachuting. With the British Army, you do a thing called P Company. And you do, this is like a selection, another selection course, incredibly arduous. They just run you and work you until you can hardly stand. And then once they've almost destroyed every bone in your body, you're allowed to jump out an aeroplane.
For freedom.
Yeah. Military-wise, one size does not fit all. I'll give you an example. Just prior to me joining the British Parachute Regiment, the British Parachute Regiment had been fighting in the jungle in Borneo, Sarawak, and various places. Jungle fighters, okay. They trained as jungle fighters. When I got there, we were going to Northern Ireland. Now, you just imagine you've had a soldier and you've trained him to be a jungle fighter so that he can train in a jungle. Now you have to retrain him, because fighting on a street or in a town or fighting terrorism is totally different to jungle warfare. So you have to take that soldier or that group of soldiers, and you have a period of time where you do retraining. And it's the same wherever they send a group of soldiers. Before they send them somewhere, they don't just say, okay, grab your rifle, grab your pack, get on a plane, we're going. Except for highly trained special forces. They have different packs packed for different geographical areas. And when they get on the plane, they're meant to know what kind of warfare they're going into and whether they can handle it. Mm-hmm. But ordinarily, a soldier, when they send him somewhere, they have to retrain him. Mm-hmm. They have to train him how to fight, how to fight in a town, in urban areas, in built-up areas. Mm-hmm. It's the same as the common enemy back in my time was eyeball to eyeball with a Russian foe, the communists. Okay, the training to fight a land army, an enemy, okay, to fight the Russians in a European theater mm-hmm. is totally different to fighting those people in the desert or the jungle or even in the mountains. Mm-hmm. So all troops, when they're going to an area operations, are retrained to work in that area of operations.
Okay. How big was how large was your team, by the way?
It depends on what units are. When I was in the Special Air Service in Rhodesia, which mm-hmm. is now Zimbabwe, mm-hmm. we used to operate in 2-man and 4-man teams. Okay. But having said that, we could do a camp attack and take a whole lot of people with us. Mm-hmm. They had a very small army in Rhodesia. Again, incredible army, incredible, super little soldiers. Okay. Because it was a small population, they would use 2-man teams and 4-man teams. Don't forget, 2 men and 4 men are far easier to hide in the bush or in the jungle than a platoon. Mm-hmm. And if you're operating in 2-man teams, don't forget, you're not a trauma medic, but you are medic trained. Mm-hmm. Okay. And if something goes wrong, what you try to do is to get the people out as quick as possible. Warfare evolves, helicopters, all different types of means of infiltration, extraction, and that kind of thing. So tactically, there's a lot of things that I won't go into, but warfare has evolved. So we used, in Rhodesia, we used 2-man teams, 4-man teams. You could use a whole squadron, because in a Special Air Service, it's not called companies or platoons. You work in a squadron and a troop. You're in a troop, troops in a squadron, and then a squadron's in a regiment. So different terminology for different types of special forces units. But I have spoken to, I spent some time in Iraq. I spent, which was quite an eye-opener for me, because before I went to Iraq, my previous contract had been maybe 6 years, 8 years before, and that was up in equatorial Africa. 2 totally different types of geography, mm-hmm. totally different topography, and totally different soldiering. Because you find that each war produces its own lexicon and sayings. Okay. We had things like CASEVAC for casualty evacuations, dust off for casualty evacuations. They don't use any of that terminology at all. Mm-hmm. When I went to Iraq, it was like I listened to some of the young guys. It was a whole new language for me that I had to learn. Mm-hmm. We didn't. When I started, we used to use a compass and a map. Mm-hmm. And if you didn't know how to map read, you were in trouble. Mm-hmm. And if you didn't know how to use a compass, you're in big trouble, because you had to, as you were traveling across the ground, you had to be able to know where you were. And you had to be able to know where you were by looking at the map and plotting. Okay. And also, some of that would involve the tactics you were using to find people, which I'm not going to go into. But you would have to know how to orientate your map, use a compass, work out where you are, because you may need extraction, okay, or you may be looking for a certain obstacle or site or something, okay. Nowadays, I go to Iraq, and the first thing they give me a GPS.
Yeah.
And I look at it, and it's like giving a caveman a rifle. I look at it and say, okay, can somebody show me how to work this?
Yeah.
And I don't have a problem with GPSs. I use them now. I don't know whether that's telling us we've got minutes left or what. So soldiering evolves, and if you're out of it too long, you have to retrain and catch up with people. Yeah, that in Iraq it was really strange. We had in one place we had we had 6 F-16s stacked up on top of us, and I said to the guys, I said, why? I didn't know there was 6 on top of us. I only saw 2. And these things, I said to one, I worked with a couple of Americans there as well, young guys, and I said, okay, and they did their thing. The Air Force did their thing, and then they just seemed to go away. I said, well, I said, okay, so now what happens? They came in, they dumped what they dumped, and now they've gone away. And this young American says to me, he said, wait a minute. He said, look up into the sky, look right up into the sky. And I said, but the airplanes aren't up in the sky, they've gone somewhere. He said, no, look up in the sky. And I looked up, and I took some binoculars, and right up high was a large airplane. It wasn't an F-16 anymore. There was this large airplane, and it was just orbiting. And behind this airplane, which was a tanker, was 2 F-16s. Now, I couldn't see what they were doing, but the guy says to me, he says, they're fueling up. They haven't gone anywhere. What they've done is they dumped, and the minute they dumped, they climbed right back up and hooked onto that tanker up there, and they're refilling. So I said, so now what happens? And just then, what you saw is you saw another 2 F-16s kind of fall away, and they came down, and they went into the strikes mode. So all the time there was 2 airplanes over the area, okay, over the contact area, working, and as soon as they run out, they would have another 2 fall down, and then the 2 on the tanker would fall and would work as cover or wingmen for the other 2 climbing up. So, you know, in my day, that was unheard of. Yeah, you've got because a jet only has, a fighter has only limited airtime. He's, I've spoken to fighter pilots, and one of them said to me, he said, if you have to sit in anything longer than an hour to do your job, he said, it's just not worth doing it, because they fly very fast, they dump, and they get out of the way. Okay. In my day, people used to loiter. We used to have to wait for the airplane. Have you got air support? Yeah, it's coming. When is it coming? It's here just now. Be patient. It's coming. Okay. Nowadays, I don't know. Even communications are different. You used to walk around with a big radio and spare batteries.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you've got a radio that fits in your pocket. You've got a radio for communicating. You've got a Thuraya phone to communicate with somebody somewhere in the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And so military evolves very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Was the
You know,
was SAS, Rhodesian SAS, was that the third group you joined?
yeah, that was the third army I joined. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I was curious, why didn't you tell the British that you had that previous experience?
You know, it's very. The British Parachute Regiment is very. Uh, it's it's a strange culture.
Mm-hmm.
It is, and um, I'll tell you a story about the British Parachute Regiment. We'll try to explain it to you.
Okay.
When I was going through this basic training with the British Parachute Regiment, before I had done selection to become a parachute soldier,
Mm-hmm.
I knew I had documentation saying I was already a qualified parachutist.
Mm-hmm.
So I got these documents sent to me, and I made an appointment to see the colonel. Now, what I was interested in is you used to get an extra £2 if you had wings and you were a qualified parachutist. I think it was £2. So I thought, okay, I can get £2 extra. So I will ask them, will they recognize my qualifications as a parachute soldier?
Mm-hmm.
And I got an interview with the colonel. And he chatted to me for a while. And his reply to me was, "Oh, did you ever jump out of a British aeroplane?" And my response was, "No, sir. Same type of thing. I originally used to parachute out of a Caribou or a C-130. And I told him they were the same. They were the same airplanes. And he said, yes, exactly. Not a British one, though. I said, no, not a British one, sir. Definitely not. And he said, I see. We have tremendous respect for the Australian Army. But you were trained in the colonies, weren't you? And I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to say to the man. And he said, yes. He said, well, anybody can fall out of an airplane, but you have to be really good and do P company to fall out of one of ours. And from there onwards, he just ignored me. And I didn't know what to say. I didn't know where to leave. I didn't know where he finished me. And then he just started to shovel papers across his desk, and I didn't exist. In his world, I no longer existed because I wasn't a parachute soldier.
I see.
And if I'd have pitched up and said to the Brits, I'm a seasoned soldier, here's my docs, I'm a parachute soldier, and they'd have sent me to battalion, when I got up there, those soldiers said, how did you get here? Oh, qualified in Australia. My life would have been very, very difficult.
Yeah.
It's just the culture. It's just the culture. Yeah. Even when you go to battalion after doing basic training, there's a lot of soldiers up there. They don't see you as a soldier. They don't see you as a parachute soldier. It's strange. It's like, what are you doing here? Where do you come from? What have you done?
Mm-hmm.
What do you know? Go over there, stay out of the way, keep out of trouble, let us do our job. And slowly but surely, things change.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's why I didn't tell them, because I could see that this could cause problems for me. And I wasn't really that keen on having that kind of problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So when did you join the Rhodesian SAS?
I joined the Rhodesian SAS in 1974, at the beginning of 74. Yeah, 1974. They knew I came from the British Parachute Regiment because they were taking in soldiers, and as long as they were trained and experienced. I did, however, have to do their parachute course again. And that was because the Air Force would not put up an aeroplane for only one or two people. So they used to load the airplane, wait until they had enough people who hadn't parachuted before, put them through a para course, and then shove you on the airplane to make up the numbers, and they just called it a conversion course. I had the privilege of jumping out of DC-3 Goonie Birds. That's the same type of airplane they used in the Second World War. And yeah, that's what we used to jump out of. And that was a real novel experience, because I've been used to jumping out of more modern troopers. You know, I came out of C-130s, C-60s, and a Caribou, North American Caribou, which will tailgate and all sorts of things. The old DC-3, it's one door on one side, and you all go out the same door, and it sounds like an old Ford motor car. So and it rattles and it shakes, and it's windy and it's smelly, and you're very glad to get out of it. Yeah. So yeah, the Rhodesian experience was a good experience. The Rhodesians are great little soldiers. We had now, what you understand, when I was there, I was in my 20s then. Yeah, I was in my late 20s then. Okay, and I was a seasoned soldier. I'd been in 2 or 3 operational areas, but the most amazing thing is, because of the smallest of the army, they used to have to utilize troops in many different facets, and many of those troops were young. Some of them came into the army straight out of school, because they were brought into the army straight out of school. And we had youngsters, 18-year-old youngsters, taking the position of sergeant, platoon commander, section leader, and that kind of thing. I mean, I know 18-year-old kids used to call in airstrikes because they were in a 4-man or 6-man patrol, and they needed airstrikes. And these were literally kids out of school, and they were bringing in Hunter jets and Vamps and all sorts of things. And at that age, tremendous responsibility for a 4-man or 6-man team. And in fact, it is a Rhodesian soldier from the Rhodesian Light Infantry, because they trained those to be parachute soldiers because we didn't have enough helicopters to go around. There's a young guy there, and he holds the world record for operational jumps. Now, when I say operational jumps, I mean onto a hot DZ. Because the technique was, as soon as somebody found the terrorists or people in the bush, they would have a reaction force, immediate reaction force, and they put them in a DAC, and they dropped them deliberately on top of that contact, because these guys, the terrorists, move so fast through the bush to get away. And that youngster, he holds the world record, and I forget what number it is, but it's up in his hundreds, because they would drop onto a contact, make contact, break contact, be picked up, brought back to where they originally started from. And when that siren went again to say that another team had made a contact, they'd get in that plane again, and they could probably do 2 or 3 contact jumps a day.
Wow.
You know, there's a photo in my book of an American guy, ex-USMC. I don't use his real name. I knew him well, and you can see by the look on his face, that man had a 12-hour running contact.
Wow.
They chased the enemy for 12 hours because all contacts had to be taken to what they call a positive conclusion. Okay. So yeah, I'm exceptionally proud that I served with the Rhodesian SAS. Yeah.
So was it the same kind of planes they used for those operational jumps, and what height were they jumping from?
They used DACs, Okay, they later started to use a DC-7, which it was a larger airplane, but most operational jumps were done from DC-3s, the old Unibird, and they would jump. I reckon you're coming out on an operational jump 800, 700. You come out very low. Come out incredibly low. Yeah. So very low jumps, so you get down on the ground quickly and right on top of the contact. Yeah.
And was it always daytime, or did they do night jumps?
The enemy we were fighting did not move a great deal in the daytime, but you would do night jumps to get inserted. You get inserted in you jump in and get inserted in a place. Again, I emphasize, different units have different line functions. What I'm telling you about now, the RLI, they operated mostly inside Rhodesia. Okay, the Special Air Service, we operated outside of Rhodesia. We would go and find camps outside of the borders of Rhodesia, and we would go and find them in a lot of different places, not just across the border, but we would trans travel and find them. Yeah.
So did
but,
you have
night jumps for insertion, but there'd be no need for you to jump at night onto a contact. You might jump in at night to do a camp attack, but you wouldn't attack at night. Okay, night jumps would be for inserting for a day operation. You'd parachute at night, and then probably walk into the area or the camp you're going to attack in the morning. But dropping on a DZ at night, you can incur casualties because it's dark, unless of course you've had a team go in before and mark it, pathfind the team, and it wasn't that kind of war, you know. Insertion by free fall, yeah, they used to do that as well. Yeah, so not unless it's absolutely essential, not much point in dropping, but they do and have done night drops, but it's not you know, can be a little bit counterproductive. When they were working outside the borders and a long way, which would mean they would be out of helicopter range, okay. Then they were going at night, and I don't want to get into this too much, but one of the line functions of the Special Air Service would be training dissident troops in another country. Okay. Training those troops so as they could occupy or keep busy your enemy. A matter of your enemy is my enemy, I will help you. So they did do some night operations, but that was for insertion, not actually the same as the RLI did. Yeah.
Did the teams have like artillery and air support in the Rhodesian SAS?
No, I know what you're talking about. Is you're talking about defensive fire zones, which the artillery used to do a lot in Southeast Asia. But for a start, the artillery that the Rhodesians had was a little bit antiquated. You know, you'll be going up, your actual area of operations would be a long way away, and the artillery, I mean, they had I don't know a lot about artillery, but let's put it this way, the range of the artillery would not be sufficient to cover an SAS patrol. because we would be too far away from them. Okay. I've had an occasion where I've had a support group come in with mortars, but they would be handheld mortars, not embedded. They do use that kind of equipment on a big camp attack, but that would be all prearranged. But no, I can't recall ever operating under the range of artillery. The South Africans did, but they had a lot better equipment, and that war only came later on. That kind of war came later on. In fact, both the Rhodesian War were very intense wars. You know, and for the size of the army, they did incredibly well. I later joined the South African Army. Because they had that, the old South Africa had its own armaments industry, and they produced some of the finest cannons in the world. Those people worked under artillery coverage because the things they manufactured were magic. They could throw these bombs for miles. So, and again, it's the operational procedure that the unit has as a line function. At Quito, I don't know if you know it, but the South Africans had some of the biggest artillery battles on African soil since the Second World War, when they were fighting the Germans, or the Allies were fighting the Germans up in North Africa. So you know, the South African War is very poorly reported. The capability of the military, the South African military, very poorly reported, very underreported and misunderstood. The South African Reconnaissance Commando were absolutely brilliant, world renowned. And the South African Army was the strongest army on the African continent until you got up to Israel, and Israel's not in Africa.
Right.
They were undefeatable, and their equipment, the NEL, what used to be called Arms Corps then, the mine-proof vehicles that many countries use nowadays, they were designed and built in Rhodesia and in South Africa. Their skills, their inventive skills, their engineering, their technology was incredibly advanced in South Africa, and not a lot of people know that. But I've seen some of the equipment, and I've soldered with some of the South Africans. It's like all armies. It's like a piece of string. At one end you get the rubbish, at the other end you get the brilliance. Okay, and that will be the same anywhere. But on our piece of string, at the brilliant end, we had a lot of weight, a lot of good stuff. Really, you know, the South African Navy dominated the whole coast right up the Mozambique Channel. And that wasn't with surface vehicles, that was with their submarines.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The Atlantic around Angola. That more shipping wasn't sunk by the South African Navy is not the fault of the South African Navy. That was political. But they dominated the whole southern region. They were excellent. The South African Army was excellent. The only problem is with the South African Army, I don't speak Afrikaans. I'm only English speaking, so I was a lesser mortal. So you know what I mean? That's the way it is. I believe the Texans in America believe they're the only real Americans, and the rest of you are lesser mortals. I don't know. That's what a Texan told me. He told me they're just me.
I've heard something like that. So when did you join the South African military, and what was that training like?
I didn't train with the South African military. I was recruited by them, and I came straight down here. They came up and they said, "You're not going to have a job for very much longer." At that time, actually, I'd already been invalided out the Rhodesian Army. You know, because of I was wounded twice on operations, and I was invalided out. I don't know what you call it in America. I was fired. Yeah, I think fired is
medical discharge.
They threw me out, and they came up there and they did interviews, and you just went to a seedy hotel and spoke to a couple of people who obviously were South African officers from the South African Army, and they said, "Do you want a job?" And you said, "Yes, please. Thank you very much." And off you went. They paid you to go down there, and I went straight into the South African Army. As I said, being English speaking was very difficult, and I was only in uniform for about 12 months, and then my contract, because they brought us down on a short-term contract, and then I left. But there were quite a lot of guys stayed in the Special Air Service. We had guys from all over the world. We had people from Canada, from America, New Zealand, Australia, France, all kinds of people as Special Forces soldiers, because they were already experienced from other wars. And then we went down to the Special Air Service en masse, went down to South Africa, and I suppose it's like everything, different cultures, different ideas, different language. So after 12 months, a lot of them left, went home, had enough. Don't forget, the Rhodesians fought a very, very intense war for over 13 years. So I think a lot of them were tired because it wasn't a kind of war where you went home on furlough. You'd go into the bush and you'd fight for 6 weeks. Then you come back out. And then you go back in. Then it was continuous. It was always there. It was always there. We were always operational. Yeah.
Did you, in your opinion, the mixing of all the different cultures and training and all that, was that more problematic, or did it help at all? You know, people learning new methods and that sort of thing, and sharing ideas.
Australians, New Zealanders, Brits, Canadians, they have a very similar training structure and lexicon to the British Army. All those, what we would term Commonwealth armies, their training program is very similar. So they didn't have any difficulty. All right. We had Americans who we had a really fine gentleman. He came in as a captain, Captain John Murphy. He came from an American military background, Army Airborne, splendid soldier. So obviously, and he came in as a captain. That doesn't mean he was a captain in the American Army. He may have been a major. You know, a fine gentleman, and a gentleman that had a lot of expertise. So we had people come from other armies that were what you would term combat soldiers. We did have other people come in from other armies who did other jobs, but I'm talking about the area I worked in, all those people would have been seasoned combat trained soldiers. They would have already been operational. And in Rhodesia, we didn't have any problems at all bringing them in and working with them. Because soldiering at that level is very, very similar.
Okay.
And also you'll find that what I term Western troops, they do cross-train, they do cross-pollinate. Nowadays, the Brits will go and train with the Germans. I've never quite worked that out, but the Brits go and train with the Germans. They'll go and train with the Belgians, then they'll go across the other side of the world and train with the Australians, then they'll go and train with the Americans. So militaries nowadays, after the initial bumps and bruises, they'll be able to work together. So that wasn't a problem. When we came down to South Africa, many of the Rhodesians thought they would be fighting the same kind of war, and it wasn't. It was a totally different war. It was different. The bush and things. Okay, the special forces operating was similar, but it was different. But the South Africans have a different cultural heritage that I would put down to the fact that the South Africans were very isolated internationally. Okay, they were small, and don't forget the South Africans at that time. Okay, and even now, the Afrikaner and the South Africans are a nation. They are a real nation. They have a written history and their own language. And it would be like trying to merge a lot of English speaking, or I know Americans don't speak real English, but we try. From time to time. You try very hard, and you try very hard. Yes. So it tried to merge. Imagine trying to merge a group of English-speaking soldiers into a group of soldiers that spoke a little bit of English, but the rest of them spoke Viking or German or something like that, or Gaelic. You know, it would be difficult. Plus, at that time, and I'm talking Afrikaans people now, the Afrikaners people, okay, they have their own language. At that time, they were fiercely protective of their culture and their language. And I think they had some fear of being anglicized. Because they were a very small nation. You know, we're only talking millions in double digits, not in hundreds of millions. You know, we were talking, I think, maybe 4 or 5 million people. Okay. But they were, and they still are, a nation. That's not to say that many of them fully bilingual. They could talk English and Afrikaans, but you know, it was a very difficult marriage. It really was. It did ease up eventually. Just by way of interest, when I first came out of the British Army, before going to the Rhodesian Army, I went to South Africa under a misguided idea that they were recruiting people for their army, and they weren't. They didn't need anybody in their army because they weren't fighting a war at that time. Okay, and that was back in about 72, 73. because they only started to have problems later on. The problem started internally, and then, you know, later on in the 70s, then they escalated and got worse. So they were very kind of insular, very withdrawn from the international community. And that some people got on very well, but the other guys, some who left, you know, there was just this, they were unable to, you know, to kind of assimilate, for want of another word, you know. In fact, I did a 12-month contract and went away. I went away and did other things, and it was only in about 1985 that they came and found me to work in another area of expertise. So
when you say they,
okay, I was actually headhunted by it was the general was in charge of what we were doing, but when I was sculling around, I kept on getting messages that a certain colonel from the SADF was looking for me. And I'd only spent 12 months in the SADF. And I thought, well, if a colonel's looking for me from the SADF, I'd better just start away, because I don't know why he's trying to find me. And then he did eventually contact me, and he said he would like me to come across and have a meeting with him, which I did. I then said, okay, fine. You know, I'll come across and you can tell me what it's all about. Yeah. So that's so then that was in about 85. That would be about 85, 84, 85. I went back into the military, retaining my rank, but not in uniform.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does the book go into any technical details like weapons and tactics and stuff, or is it more about the people who were, you know, more people story?
Okay. It doesn't give you a lot of tactics, and that is done for a purpose, because some of the people I soldiered with are still operational today.
Okay.
And there's certain things that you learn, and even though they're old things, if they became common knowledge, it would be a danger to them, and it would be helping whoever they're operating against. So it's a life story, it's an adventure story, but I try to stay away from tactics. I do give a breakdown of the equipment that we carried in Rhodesia. I gave a list of our equipment complement, or our equipment load, to give some idea of the weight that we carried. When I was up in Rhodesia, I met an American who had just come out of the American Army, and he said to me, he said, "How do you fight an enemy carrying so much equipment?" And I told him how we fight an enemy carrying so much equipment, because he was a soldier. But I'm not going to tell the world how I fight an enemy. How does a man who's carrying 30, 40 kilograms of equipment on his back, how does he operate, and how does he find and destroy his enemy? If I tell you that, then they will know. Okay. Little nuances. Okay. I will give you. I'll give you one, because I do mention it in the book. In the Australian Army, they have a thing called a given. And a given is this: if you walk along tracks and trails, you will die. Okay, well, how do you figure that? Because if you're moving across a large area, be it jungle or bush, okay, if you stay off tracks and trails, they can't find you and they cannot ambush you.
Mm-hmm.
But if I set a team of 4 people on any track and any trail, okay, that team may not ambush or engage the enemy. But if I continuously put people ambushing on a track or a trail anywhere, the law of averages says eventually a bad guy will walk down that track and you will hit him. Okay. Therefore, the Australians say, stay off tracks and trails, because they've learned the hard way. The other thing is, and people say, but you can't walk through primary jungle. And I say, you don't have to walk through primary jungle. If you walk a certain distance off that track and trail, you won't find a landmine, because someone sometime has put a landmine on a track or a trail. And if you don't walk along that, you won't walk on it. Now, I know of one tragedy where people walked up and down a track, not once, but 5 times. And it caused, eventually, at the end of the day, all the other people didn't tread on it.
Yeah.
You had people going up and down it like Main Street.
Yeah.
Nobody trod on it. But then one person did, and 3 people died.
Yeah.
So that's, those kind of tactics I haven't gone into. I put that one in there because that was just to explain the methodology of the Australians. Okay. So I talk about, I give you loads that we carried, heavy loads of equipment, what they were, etc. But again, each time it's different. If you're going somewhere, you may take this type of machine gun, you may take that side, you may take each person for the section may take 200 extra rounds of link, and you may have 4 men in the platoon or in the section. That's good enough. If you've only got 2 men, you've got to double up. If you don't need a machine gun, why take it? So there's a whole lot of things. But for general interest, I have given an equipment list that a Special Forces soldier would carry. It will probably be different today because of different equipment. But like the guy says, if you're carrying 35 kg, how do you fight an enemy? Well, join and find out. Because I'm not going to tell you. Okay, I go into my the weaponry I carried in Iraq. Pretty common knowledge. In Iraq, the people I was working with, we did not use armored vehicles, Humvees, or any type of armored vehicle. We used ordinary soft skin vehicles. The reason being is that the infrastructure in Iraq is very, very poor. And what we were doing, we would have to travel along that inevitable road or track that I've just spoken to you about. And we would often get ambushed. And the best way to avoid an ambush was, we found soft skin vehicles, heavy armaments, 5.0 Brownings, twin machine guns, and grenade belt-fed grenade launchers, and lots of speed. Very fast, very fast. Can't go fast in a Humvee. Just an ordinary, what you Americans call a pickup truck. Okay, doors and windows out, so nothing can fly around and hit you. And speed, fast. Very, very difficult. I mean, I was ID'd 3 times. We were in a couple of weeks in Iraq, and they hit the vehicle. The vehicle was hit with shrapnel, but we weren't caught in a blast. We were picked up by the shrapnel because of the speed. You'll never get past an explosion if they get it at the right time, they will catch you.
Mm-hmm.
And I have an actual video from a spy camera which shows you vehicles going together and getting blown. But to how they used to get the IEDs, they would bury the IED on the side of the road,
Mm-hmm.
and they had to have two markers, the same as you have to have a sight on a rifle or a pistol. And they would pick two trees or a tree, and they'd say, okay, when the vehicle gets there, I'll push the button. The only thing is that when they push that tip to detonate, it's not instantaneous. It's not like when you're using a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, of course, don't forget it has to travel there. And the method they're detonating by, there's a delay.
Mm-hmm.
So the vehicles were heavily armed, but light and very, very fast, very fast.
What years were you in Iraq?
I went there. I was there from 2004 until April 2005.
Mm-hmm.
I then came back, and I didn't go back there until 2007.
Mm-hmm.
And then things had changed, and I wasn't really interested in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the most difficult military situation you've been in that you're willing to talk about? I know you've done a whole lot of stuff, but is there one you'd like to highlight?
Okay. Other than when I got wounded, because that was difficult.
Yeah.
There's no question. That was not good.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Both times it was not good. I was with a 4-man reconnaissance team, and we got compromised. And we went to ground, and then we decided what we were going to do. And between going to ground and deciding what we were going to do about this, we actually went into a depression in a very thick, I think you call it Jess in America, very thick bush. And we went into ground, and we sat down inside that depression in that ground, and we could listen to them all day going around trying to find us. You could listen to them whistling to each other. And in that particular area of the world, they get scared of being in the bush alone by themselves, so they make a noise and they whistle. They'll continuously call to each other. Of course, don't forget, in the African bush, you've got things that bite you and you die.
Yeah.
So, and they're aware of that. So they will whistle and make a noise to either scare the game away or to encourage each other that they're still there. So we could hear them. And that went on all day. Okay. The conclusion of that, I won't go into. And the other one was when I got lifted at a roadblock, when I was working external in civilian clothes, as whatever it was, they called me. They picked me up there, and I was put in Lusaka Central Prison in Zambia. They actually issued me with detainment order and everything. Nobody actually knew that I'd been picked up. And that was the scary part. Because when they have you, they can do anything with you. You don't know what they're going to do. And that was quite stressful, actually. And we managed to get out of that. But you grow with the situation. This is what I did for a living. It's like saying to somebody who handles venomous snakes or a lion tamer in a zoo or whatever. Isn't that dangerous? Aren't you afraid he's going to bite you? Isn't he going to eat you? Hey, it's what he does.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what he chose to do. And he knows things that you don't, So he gets on. Yeah, he can get bitten. Of course he can.
Yeah.
The lion can jump on him and eat him for breakfast. That's obvious. I mean, they're wild animals. So the situation for me changed dramatically after I was wounded the second time.
Okay.
Yeah. A situation did change, and I wouldn't be honest if I didn't say it didn't change, but it did. It kind of changed things became incredibly personal.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But those two particularly, they got my attention.
So now, at this point in your life, do you look back at all the things you did and wonder, wow, how did I get through all that? Like the physical and the difficulty of it. Do you ever look back and say, whoa?
Okay. I don't know if you can still hear me because I got that little thing across my screen again.
I can hear you.
Okay. How do I get through that? Okay. And people have asked me just recently because we're having problems in Mozambique again. And that was my old stomping grounds. That's where I used to fight in Mozambique. A lot of my fighting is done in Mozambique. A couple of people said, would you go back again at your age? And my answer is, I haven't been asked to go back, but I would have to sit down and think seriously, would I go back? And I probably would.
Mm-hmm.
But how have I managed, and what do I see when I look back?
Mm-hmm.
What people have to remember when they read this book, originally that book started as a Christian testimony to how the Lord had worked in my life. And I became a Christian. And I wrote that in the book. And after I found a publisher, which was very difficult because publishers don't take first-time writers, okay? They told me to go and find a publishing agent. My editor or editing agent came back and he said, can we get rid of all this personal stuff and all the religious stuff? And then I had to sit down and think about this because that's what the book was about. And I spoke to some people who had published. And they said, the most difficult thing in the world is to get a publishing house, because my book is not self-published. It goes through a proper publishing house. I am published by one of the world's recognized military historical publishers. Okay.
Yep.
So the people said, the secret is get published the one time, do what your editor has told you to do. And then the next one will be easier. Whether I write the next one is not the point. But at the moment, we're busy, engaged in actually making a film. So the book was a Christian testimony, how the Lord had led me through these things and how I became a Christian person.
Okay.
And I have that faith that carries me. I know people. I had a very close friend who committed suicide. He was caught outside the country in civilian clothes, and his task was an assassination, and it went wrong. And he was captured, and he spent 7 years in jail, and he was eventually released. And a short time after he was released, he shot himself. Okay. I know other men who have also, I know a colonel who committed suicide. So at the end of the day, sometimes, not always, sometimes there is a psychological effect on soldiers. Okay. And sometimes tragically, they kill themselves. The worst cases are when you have to differentiate between people such as myself it's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And taking a 17 or 18-year-old kid straight out of school or college, and you put him in uniform and you tell him, now you're a soldier. Okay. I find that the emotional trauma and the psychological negatives are quite severe when the person at a young age is made to do these things. At the time, he thinks it's a joke. At the time, he doesn't have a problem. It's only later on down the road that he starts to regurgitate and rehash things that happened and what he may have been made to do, what he did like, what he didn't like. For people like me, this is what we do. This is what we do. This is what we did. But my Christian faith has carried me over a lot of hurdles, especially when my wife committed suicide. You know, that was the worst death I've ever seen. Now, when I say the worst death I've ever seen, I don't mean it visually. It was the worst death, although it was quite horrifying because of a head wound. I mean, the whole surrounding. This was somebody that I was very close to some of the troops, but this woman was my wife. I was close to this woman, so it was the worst death that I had ever seen. I got over that. People said, "Did you?" There 4 or 5 phases of what is it? Grieving or something. So I didn't know what they were talking about. I said, "What are you talking about here?" And they said, "Didn't you get angry? Didn't you?" Well, no, not really. It wasn't. I didn't shoot her. She shot herself. It was her decision. Okay. So you know, I have a different. I have a biblical outlook. I have a different outlook to things, and that has carried me through. So this book was about my Christian faith and how I come to know the Lord as a combat soldier. I took all that out because they said, take it out, you can write another book. Okay. Instead, we're in the process of making a film.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, I don't watch war movies. I don't read war books because war movies, the only ones I watch are the funny ones where you know, where the guy falls out of an airplane with a gun and he lands on the bonnet of a car and his gun fires forever. I just don't know if I had to carry that much ammunition. But this guy's only got one magazine. That silly war movies I watch because then I can laugh. Okay, but no, I don't see the point, and that's why I didn't write a war story. I wrote a people story, you know, about where I came from, what motivated me to become a soldier, what about the people I met soldiering. Obviously, I have to mention when I got wounded the 2 times. I have to mention certain people who unfortunately were killed. You know, but it's not. We have a thing here called skeet and donner. That's shoot and beat. You know, shoot and fight. You know, and I don't know if you know it, but since I've been getting involved in trying to get somebody to produce this movie, and I have a director already working on it. He told me that an action movie, and that's what this is going to be, an action movie has to have some kind of shooting or blowing up every 8 minutes.
Oh, really?
And,
is that the rule?
And if you lived a soldier's life like that, you would be really over the edge. You know, a soldier's life is 99% boredom and waiting and 1% abject terror. And that just about sums it up. You know, there's a lot of waiting, a lot of planning, a lot of walking, a lot of running, a lot of preparation. and then you do the job. And if it's prepared for, and if the training's good, it's just like an exercise, really.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask, I'm curious about religion. When you first started to till you wrapped up your military career, how much was religion a part of the lives of the people you worked with or operated with? And I'm curious your timeline. Were you always religious, or did you become
No.
more religious?
In my timeline, I didn't meet any religious people.
Hmm.
I don't know. In the South African Army,
Mm-hmm.
they have in the South African Army. Okay, I know of highly decorated officers. I know them personally, and I know that they pray with their troops before they go into combat.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those soldiers is a colonel, lieutenant colonel, very famous colonel, highly decorated colonel. He was the father of special forces, Colonel Jan Bredenbach. He's also an author of various books. I know that he is a devout Christian, and he does pray. Well, not now because he's very old. He's older than me. He did pray with his troops before they went into battle. Prayed with them when they came back. In the South African Army, it was what I call a praying army. They would have church parades. They would pray. They would pray before they go on operations. When I was in Iraq, I was what they term an expat, a Westerner, but we had Gurkhas and we had Fijian troops on the gun teams and that kind of thing. The Fijians would pray every time they went out on patrol. I know they prayed. In the Special Air Service, I've got to be honest, I didn't see a lot of what you might call spiritual activity there. But you've got to understand where we came from. I mean, I was soldiering with Royal Marines, American Marines, British Parachute Regiment, American Army Airborne. I mean, really, what they think and what they feel about religious things, very rarely, and unless your team's close, very rarely will they discuss it. One of the most private and personal discussions I ever had with another team leader was after his first daughter was born. And he came to me and he said, "Rob, you have no idea how much I want to live." But nobody sat down in I can't actually remember ever, when I was in the Rhodesian forces, I can't remember ever praying with anybody. I wasn't a Christian then. I became a Christian after, just after the second time I was wounded. Or was it the first time? Okay, first time, and then my faith grew. So, and in the British Army, Rhodesian Army, Australian Army, they call ministers God botherers. That's
God what?
God botherers. They have people. They're people who go around bothering God. Listen to me, God. Do things for me, God. Bothering people. So they call them God botherers. But no, it's you do. I had a friend who was a sergeant in the Marines who spent time at Khe Sanh in Vietnam. And I said to him, I met him at church function. I said, "Why did you get out of the Marines?" And he said, "Oh, I'm a Christian." And I said, "But you can be a Christian in the Marines." He said, "Yeah, you sure can, but it's very, very hard." And that just about sums it up. You can be a Christian in anything, but some places it's more difficult because of your environment, you know. And I'm quite sure there's the strangest thing about the Rhodesian War, why we're on this Christian faith thing. Towards the end of the war, as it was winding down, and we knew they were going to hand the place over to the communists, there was a great spiritual revival. A lot of people committed to Christ and became Christians. Okay, it was just something that happened. It was just something that happened, and those people left Rhodesia, and they took that faith to all those other countries they went to.
Okay. Within Africa, probably, most people.
And I know one, pardon?
Did they emigrate still within Africa, stayed within Africa, or?
No, they didn't stay in Africa. They went, don't forget, Christianity is not the flavor of the month around the world. People are marching more and more to humanism, paganism, and all the other kind of isms. Okay, you know, so there's a lot of countries that were Christian countries, and the amount of Christians has shrunk. All those people from Rhodesia that made a conversion or had a conversion experience, they emigrated all around the world, back to the States, New Zealand, Australia, all over the place, even to Europe. I met, there was one soldier, and I can't remember his name now. He came off one up in the South African Army. He came down to South Africa with the Rhodesians, went into the Reconnaissance Commando, and he, when I was getting out at the end of my contract, he came to me and he said, I'm getting out as well. And I said, what you going to do? He said, I'm taking my my daughter, because his wife had gone somewhere. He said, I'm taking my daughter and we're going to Australia. And I said, what are you going to do? And he said, I'm going to theological college. So he was going back to Australia or wherever. He's taking his daughter, last remainder of his family, with him, and he was going back to become a minister in the church. So, you know, although the people spread out, there was a reason for it. I've always believed that, you know, God's in control. He lifts up men and nations. He also crushes men and also crushes nations. That's my philosophy now, and that's, you know, that's what it is now. But originally, a Christian book, take it all out, write another Christian book, make a Christian film, and I don't have any emotional problems at all because of the lifestyle I've led. I'm probably the most balanced person in the world.
Yeah, seems that way.
So say I, anyway. So say I.
So did you so in writing the book though, did you go back, did you contact old friends and teammates for any information, or is it basically your remembrances?
It's purely from memory. And apart from the Christian content and everything, I have a son and a grandson in Australia. I've only met my son once. My grandson I've never met. And I thought, if you look in the front of the book, you'll see their name for Guy and Caleb. I know neither of those people. They have both grown up without me, and they know nothing about me really. And I thought, well, you know, so I wrote it purely from memory. I didn't do a lot of research. Just, you know, it's not meant to be a definitive book on anything really. It's I wrote it for me. I wrote it, you know, as a testimony. I wrote it for my son and my grandson. Yeah, it is what it is.
So what do you hope readers, you know, when they pick it up and read it, what do you hope they take away from the book, considering you did have to edit it in a certain way.
Okay. The first two chapters of the book, I think, give a reasonable historical. It gives a historical outlook to what England was like after the Second World War, because I was born in 47, 2 years after the war ended, and Great Britain was still an empire then, and it was fast starting to crumble as I got older and older, and it gives a historical outlook on what it was like to be a child growing up in that time. So that's why I say it's not a war story. I mean, I went through the time when the Queen got married the same year that I was born. I was there as a kid when her coronation took place. I was taken around building sites. My father was a builder after the war, although he fought in the Royal Air Force. I saw, as a child, I saw the old bomb sites from the war. I contacted one of my father was married twice, so it was my stepsister or half sister. I contacted her, and she lived through the London Blitz, and I spoke to her about that. So the first couple of chapters are purely the reminiscence of a child going through a country that is coming out of a war setting, and the people I met. You must understand, when I spoke to people as a child, I was speaking to men who had fought in the First World War, and those people had spoken to people who fought in the Napoleonic Wars. So if you view it like that, I'm explaining that the people I met, how they influenced me, and what it was like to go to countries from an immigrant family. So the first two chapters are very much just historical. This is how it was. This is what happened. For example, a lot of people don't understand. There's small things in there that people don't understand. During the Second World War, which was before my time, okay, the British took all the children and they sent them into the countryside so they would be safe. Okay.
Right.
When the war was over, a lot of the women didn't reclaim their children.
Wow.
Yeah, there was just hundreds of children who didn't have a mother or father, and not because they died, but they didn't claim them. They didn't say, "Come home, the war's over." A lot of the men who came home from the war, who were alive, okay, they didn't go back to their families. They just kept on going. They went somewhere else. So that war, it wasn't just a matter of it destroyed families because the men went away and fought and died. The children were evacuated and the war was over, but nobody said, "Oh, that's Mrs. Smith was boy. Let him send him home to Mrs. Smith." She said, "Oh, well, this is great. I got rid of family. I got rid of the old man. Let's start a new life." It was a strange time, and I saw this as a child. It was strange to see. I remember my mother ran a boarding house, which is like a bed and breakfast, and some of the men who stayed there were men who came out of the Second World War. They weren't old men. They were of your age, okay? I can remember one of those. He was in submarines. He was a submariner,
Mhm.
And I can remember that we were standing there one day and he was having a cup of tea. The man started to shake so violently that he had to sit down.
Mhm.
Okay. I was attacked by an ex-prisoner of war. I was a teenager then, not a kid, but a teenager. I mean, this guy just up and started to punch me.
Hmm.
And they asked me what's going on, where I was working.
Mhm.
What's going on? What did you do? And I said, I didn't do anything. And it eventually came out that this man had been captured by the Japanese, had been in the infamous Changi prison in Singapore, been tortured, and then was sent to build the Burma Railway.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously this had affected him to such a degree that sometimes he used to perform in an incorrect or unseemly manner, like hitting people. So, and I grew up with these things, and I watched them, and I saw them, and I saw how, how as a young person, I couldn't rationalize it. I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was something, and it was only later on that I put the two together. My father never spoke at all. Very rarely had a conversation with me. Mm-hmm. But my father wasn't the only one, and there was many men like that. Mm-hmm. And there was also many women that didn't turn up for the kids. They didn't come back. I mean, it was at that time there was this tremendous movement and flux of people across the globe. Mm-hmm. They were all looking for a safe new world to live in, and all sorts of things, and I give a child's view of these things, and that kind of thing. So that's where it started, and I didn't just want to write about this happened to me, and I went there and I fought there and I got wounded, and then one day I woke up and but most certainly in the original script there was what you might call an epiphany, because I didn't have anybody come to me in all the time, in all the wars I've been. I have never had anybody come up to me and say, do you believe in God? Do you believe in Jesus? Do you want to give your life to Jesus? I never had any of that at all. Mm-hmm. It was just my conversion experience was the reason I'm making a film is because it was really unbelievable. Mm. It's the things that miracles are made out of. So, it's what I would like to do, I would like families and mothers and wives of soldiers to read the book. Because kids don't know what daddy's doing when he goes away, and wife, when he comes back, she's either really ticked because he's never there and doesn't understand why he's doing what he's doing. And I would like families of soldiers to read that, because then they would understand. I'd like civilians to read the book, because it's sometimes a surreal life. I'll give you an example. You go somewhere and you're either dropped off by a truck or you parachute into somewhere. And I don't want to dramatize this too much, but I want to try and get across an actual operator's life.
Mm-hmm.
You either get dropped off of a vehicle, or you walk for miles, or you parachute somewhere. And then you lay in the bush, in the desert, or in the jungle for a protracted period of time. And then you kill people.
Mm-hmm.
You kill people any way you can. And when you finish killing them, you get up and you walk amongst them and you make sure they're dead. Mm-hmm. And then somebody gets on a radio and says extraction. Mm-hmm. You get in the helicopter, you go back to where you started from, you take off your uniform, you shower, stack your kit away and get it ready for next time, and you go home. Mm-hmm. And when you walk in, you sit at the table and you have fish and chips, fried eggs, and then later on, ice cream. Mm-hmm. And you sit in front of the television with your family. Mm-hmm. And that happens within inside of 72 hours.
Yeah, yeah.
And people do not understand that. Mm-hmm. You will go away one Saturday, and the next Saturday, you come back and you're playing football with your kid. Mm-hmm.
Do you
and people don't, and I tried to do that. I tried to get that across, not the I ran forward and threw a grenade and then fixed my bayonet kind of thing. No, I wanted people to understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I get that. With that in mind, I'm curious of your opinion. Do you think for soldiers or any kind of military personnel coming, finishing up or coming back from operations, do you think it's useful to have more like psychological, religious, chaplain support, anything like that? Do you think that's important, or what's your opinion about that approach?
Okay. One of my old regiments, the parachute regiment, mm-hmm. Saw a lot of action in Elmut province in Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. Okay. When they came offline, when they came back and finished, they didn't go back into civilian life. They brought them to a special rest camp so mm-hmm. they could come down. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that particular thing, I think, great. That should happen more often. Mm-hmm. Bring them back. They stay in a military environment. They go to the pub, get drunk, kick a football around, do the normal soldier things, and then as they come down, when the boss says they're ready, then they go to the back and then home. Okay, I don't speak personally because I don't need it. I've never needed it because, as I say, it's what I do. Mm-hmm. But I think there is a place for. I think there is a place where soldiers, operational soldiers, should be able to go and rest before they go back into civilian life. Mm-hmm. That's just so as they can stabilize. It's not because they're going to be dangerous.
Can you repeat that?
I'm sorry. More about what they've done. Sorry. Soldiers talk more about what they had done. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you froze there when you said, yeah. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. You got cut off. You froze when you were saying soldiers need a place. And then you kind of got cut off there. Could you repeat what you said?
I think soldiers need a place to come back to. Mm-hmm. So as they can rest, not because they're dangerous, because they're not dangerous at all. Okay, but they just need to be able to relax. This is why old soldiers join soldiers clubs and veterans clubs. Mm-hmm. It's because when they come together, they can talk about things and laugh about things. Even though some of the things they laugh about are tragic, mm-hmm. and they have this safety valve, they can release it and speak about it. When you're actually operating, you don't have time to communicate. I mean, when that soldier came to me and said he never wanted to live so much since he had his daughter, that wasn't in a combat role. That was back at camp after we'd finished our operation. So soldiers definitely need some place to come to. One of my most disappointing things when I was with the Americans was their ministers are no longer allowed to proselytize. If you want to know about God, you've got to go and find him and talk to him, because if he tries to counsel you or proselytize you using any part of scripture, he can be disciplined. And when you think that ministers in the army are professional people as well, and they hold rank and they have a pension, all they can be blown out the window just by somebody saying, well, you know, like he upset me because he told me that if I didn't do this, I'd go to hell. And that's basically what a minister's job is. Don't do this or you will go to hell. You know, the thing is that, yeah, I believe they would. When the Special Air Service came down to South Africa and became part of the Special Forces in South Africa, the joke was, you can tell a woman who is married to a Rhodesian Special Air Service soldier because she's on Prozac. So I believe, I don't know if it's done now. I don't know if anybody's thought of it, but I think families need to. You know, my family is really distant from me. They have no idea what I've done. They have no idea of the armies I've been in, the wars I've been in, or where I've been and what I've done. They have no idea. They have no interest. I'm just there. I've been back home 2 or 3 times to Australia. My reception has been extremely cool. Almost to the point that I sat down and I thought to myself, are these people, are they afraid of me? Do they think I'm going to do something to them? Do they believe what they see on the movies? Am I going to fall over the edge? And you know, and this is very bad. Are they? You will hear people often say, "Oh, he doesn't talk about the war. He doesn't talk about it. It must have been terrible." Well, if he doesn't talk about it, that's okay. But has anybody ever tried to talk to him about it? Has anybody, you know? It's a two-way street. You know, it's a strange phenomena. It's really strange. Do all soldiers need help? No. But it would be good if there are people there to help them. You know, when I was a foreign soldier in the Rhodesian army, I had no family. I lived off base, so I had a flat, but basically I had nothing there. When I got wounded, there was no safe house, there was no recuperation center, there was nowhere for me to go.
Wow, okay.
Okay. And I just limped around. Now, that changed later on, because the more people to get wounded, obviously somebody starts to say, what are you going to do with these people? Can't have them limping around camp all the time. So it did change, okay? And they did establish a safe house where soldiers could go and rest and recuperate. In the States, I don't know what it's like, because, you know, that kind of thing has very bad press, and you never know whether the press is being factual. But most times, you know, soldiers have this attitude when they get hurt. it is meant to hurt, isn't it? That's why I'm here.
Mm.
That's their attitude.
Okay.
You know, they would. I have a friend who's down to the clinic or hospital or whatever you call it, often because of a parachute accident, because he's in pain. And you know, when you fill in the little forms to say, I can't hear anymore, I can't walk anymore, I can't see anymore, instead of them ticking the box and saying, okay, we understand that, okay, they say, well, why didn't you report it when it first happened? And the classic answer was because, but it was meant to hurt, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's my job.
Yeah.
You know, so I have great compassion for other soldiers. It's you know, I've seen a lot of them commit suicide. You know, yeah. I've seen a lot, and I've seen soldiers, both men and women, because when I was operating in a covert role, I operated with female agents. To maintain relationships it's tragic. It's very difficult to maintain relationships, and you know, it's hard to explain. But I'm quite sure there is somebody out there. It's just that I've never found them because I don't need them. I'm quite okay. I mean, if I was around a bit, I probably would find them. But no, but you're absolutely right. I think I've always been impressed with the way the Americans look after their ex-servicemen. But there again, I don't know whether that's correct or not, because sometimes I hear rumblings that they're not that well looked after. I'm not impressed with the way that other armies look after their returned soldiers. The Australians do a pretty good job, but there again, I haven't lived in Australia for a long time, so I don't know how things have changed. But yeah, you're right. But what I started with is I would like families to understand their soldiers.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. What I really want.
So, is there anywhere on social media that people can follow you, or is it about your work and thoughts?
I have 3 pages on social media. One of them is called Servants of Christ. That's the religious one.
.com?
No, that's a Facebook, page.
Okay.
I'm not what you might call a whiz kid with IT. I do have I have 3 Facebook pages. Okay. I'll be buggered if I can remember the address of them. I've got to be honest.
Okay.
I've never sent anything. But what I will do is I will send them to the one is Servants of Christ. The other one is a Christian Gun Owners and Security, because I train in a security field now.
Okay.
I'm a registered bodyguard. And the other one I think is just good old-fashioned Rob Brown. I'm not sure, but I shall find them out and I shall send them to you by email.
Okay. And I'll post the links on the show notes for the episode if anyone wants to. And I post it on YouTube as well, so they can look at the video or the podcast show notes and get the links.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I was just saying that I'll post the links when I post the interview on YouTube, and on the podcast version, the links will be there for people to find.
What I've got is I've got somebody who is going to make a video also of this kind of thing that we're doing here.
Okay.
I'll probably send that across to you. as well, so you can have a look at it. Okay. And so
good.
that's about it.
So,
are you happy?
What's that?
I say, are you happy?
Oh, yeah,
Did
yeah.
you achieve what you set out to do?
I did, and we've spoken for a while. I've taken a lot of your time, but it's good stuff. I really fascinating.
No, not at all. The only thing in reference to book is I don't sell books. People seem to think I sell this book. I don't sell this book. They have to go through online to the publisher. Because I have had people say, oh, can you send me a book? And my answer is, I don't sell books. I'm sorry. Yeah. It's not my job. Go to the publishers. And it's a well-established publisher. They won't lose their money, and they will get their book. It takes about a fortnight to get it. Okay.
So, all right. Well, that's all the questions I have. Do you have any parting thoughts or words?
Not really. I'm not a philosopher. I'm not a philosopher. I really emphasize, I would like ladies married to soldiers and families that have soldiers. And I pick the book up. At most, you can just get bored and say it's not interesting and put it down. You just might learn something. You just might learn something about soldiers.
I think so. It sounds like it. Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me.
Hey, listen, thanks for having the patience while I sorted out the Zoom.
No, it's good. It's good. Thank you.
Okay. Stay safe, eh? Keep well.
Thank you for watching this video version of Military History Inside Out. If you like the episode, please subscribe and hit the like button. Please check out my YouTube channel, War Scholar, and my webpage, warscholar.org, for more interviews and general military history information. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to this episode of Military History Inside Out. For more historian interviews, please find Military History Inside Out at your favorite podcast provider or visit warscholar.org. We are also on Instagram at Cris Alvarez War Scholar, on X at War Scholar, and on Facebook at warscholar.org. Visit warscholar.org for more social media links and for military history related books and items for sale. Please check back regularly for more episodes and provide likes and subscribe where you can to support continued production of these episodes. Thank you for listening.